Landlords are scum. Prove me wrong. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I believe not just only your toxic influencers like Samuel Leeds, Rob Moore, Robert Kiyosaki, all the guys with multiple homes enslave the world. I'm talking about every single landlord out there. And if I'm wrong, please prove me wrong. I believe we're in a game of Monopoly as we speak. And who wins the game of Monopoly? It's always the bankers. And as a caveat to that, who wins on a smaller scale is the landlords. If you own all the properties, you cream all the rent, you make all the money, the bankers are making even more money from you, which is even more mad, and then you're a banker's bitch and you're doing all the hard work for them, making an absolute fortune, enslaving the rest of the population. I understand this will not go down well. This was inevitable, but I had to do this video because I think we've gone so far off course that some people, and quite a few people, think that actually being a landlord is a good thing and you're doing a really good service for the population, when in reality, Jesus, back in the old days, he got the moneylenders, the bankers, the landlords, and he was whipping them out of the temple, and he upturned the tables, turning of the tables up, which is where we get the saying from, where he turned the tables. He upturned the tables in rage because of what these guys were doing, and was saying that we should never let this happen. And I think we've been there for a very long time. And not only just that, we've got to the position where people are actually saying, well, my landlord's not that bad. That is categorically wrong. Being a landlord is a very, very bad thing. And I think the idea of just saying, well, keeps the property, in fairly good order, and, they're nice enough, that's wrong. It's a bit like having a killer come round, you just killed someone, and you're going, well, to be honest, they're not that bad with me. This is where I am with landlords. And yet you're going to get so many people in the comments defend landlords and saying what they're doing is such a good thing. What many landlords believe, why they believe they're doing such a good thing, is a toxic thing that is said and believed by a lot of these influencers. Samuel Leeds says it all the time: we are adding value. No, you are not adding value. You are restricting the amount of supply on the market of a commodity that people need to live. Now, this is the difference. If there was 1 million cars and people didn't need cars, and you want to hoard as many of those cars as you want, you go ahead. As long as it doesn't affect the environment and other people, that's up to you. You keep them in your shed and you can do whatever you want with them. With housing, it's very different, because people need houses to live. So you hoarding up 500 properties in a small town or village, and then you setting a market rent because the bankers have lent you that money, and then you have to pay the bankers back with the renters' money. It's mad that people think this is okay. So I've just gone pretty hard on the landlords, but we have to take a step back and we have to look at what's funding the landlords. And the real evil in this world is definitely the bankers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, all the big bankers. And what a landlord is, and I call landlords bankers bitches, because basically the landlords borrow money from a bank who somehow can create credit from thin air, increasing the supply of currency, which then causes inflation, which is what we're having. Massive amounts of inflation at the minute, and it's only going to get worse, and massively increases the supply of currency units, which is then going to make the value of that currency much less. Like the US dollar has died, pretty much worthless now. It's 99% of its value has been lost over the last 100 years because of this. But the landlords are just a helping hand in this process, because they're borrowing that money from the bankers, who are the evil ones, and then they're enslaving the world by then using the renters' money to pay off that money and the interest, so they can have a lovely, comfortable life, own properties. And the idea that some of you landlords cannot understand that you are a big part of this problem absolutely amazes me. And please, if I have got it wrong, please write in the comments and let me know. And I am including every landlord in this, not just the big ones. If you're an old lady, mum and pop, has got a house, and we've got 2 houses or more, and she's renting them at a fairly reasonable rate to someone else, you are still enslaving that person who needs to rent a house. It might not be from you, it might have been from someone else, but when there is a very low supply, then someone has to rent that house if they want to live in that area. Then you're enslaving them. So if you're Doris at 80 years old, same rules apply. You're obviously not quite as evil as some of the big guys who enslave towns and cities, but you are still part of that problem. Now, an argument I know I'm going to get, I've had all these arguments over the years from people defending landlords and saying that without them, then there'd be even less houses out there. And even very intelligent people still believe that this is the case. But I cannot understand how, if just because you're not buying it, it doesn't mean that it disappears. It's still there, allowing someone else to potentially buy that down the road. If no one else wants to buy it, then someone else will buy it. If all landlords had to give up all their properties right tomorrow, I don't understand how the idea that they're just going to disappear. There will be millions of homes available for the people that don't have homes currently, and the prices would come down of not just the rents but the houses, and then people could afford to live again. So this idea that, God, we're doing a good thing, we're adding value, as they love to say, we're making the house lovely, and then we charge you a good rent, and then everyone's happy. Not everyone is happy, because what you are doing is you are enslaving the world. Until we realise this, the bankers have been very clever and conjuring in making people believe that what they do, where you can create credit out of thin air, which is absolutely madness. How this is even a system we're in, I have no idea. But then if we're accepting that, then we're accepting the bankers' bitches, the landlords, that are doing the exact same thing, but they're just giving a little bit of interest to the bankers, who are going to continue to enslave the world until we stop this, like I said, with Jesus upturning of the tables. So don't think I'm going just on landlords here, because Airbnb hosts and anybody in that industry is exactly the same as well. There'll be some people saying, oh, my little Airbnb, it's lovely and we only charge £80 a night. You're in the same situation as the landlords. Yes, you might have a lovely little house. Yes, you might be charging an okay rent. You're still enslaving people, and you are still hoarding a commodity that has a limited supply in this country and all over the world. And a lot of arguments that, again, we were going to get on this channel, a lot of the arguments we're going to get in the comments are going to be that it's the government's fault, they didn't make enough houses. But we can blame the government all we want, but there is no such thing as government. Who is government? What is government? It's not a thing. It's people that make up the whole thing. So we're going to blame all of them? Are we going to blame a few of them? We're going to blame the person in charge of housing? You could blame anyone, or we could just get to the crux of the problem, which is the banking situation. Then we go down the line and go, landlords are a problem, banking's a problem, landlords are just bankers' bitches, so they're a problem. So then we can sort it out from there. Get rid of government. They're another useless, parasitical entity that we do not need. A lot of people would argue with that, but we do not need the government. So it's the governments and the bankers and the landlords. They're all a massive, massive part of this problem, including the Airbnb hosts. And I'm hoping to wake a few people up to this so they can stop going around thinking they're doing such a great thing and doing, when they're actually, it's evil and it's creating a big, big problem all around the world. I don't think I would be as angry or as infused to do this video as I am if there was a bit more honesty and a little bit more acting like we are scumbags. And I see this toxic culture, especially in America, and people like Andrew Tate or anybody that has this, they'll say, I've got 10 properties, I've got 100 cars, and all this flexing, ridiculous behavior, like you're a 5-year-old, like acting so childish, it's ridiculous. I sort of can understand that a little more. They know they're scumbags. They know what they're doing is enslaving the world. There's the rich versus the poor. But then there are some landlords that it's the ones that genuinely believe they're doing something good when they're not. And I can't have that at all. I mean, I can't have the toxic guys either. Get rid of them straight away. But the idea that people are getting it wrong, it's a bit like you thinking you're doing such a good deed, and then no one's told, everyone behind your back's going, I hate them, they are nasty, they are revolting. But to you believe you're doing a great job. I want them to tell you that you're doing a horrible job and you should stop doing that. And you might be able to actually realise yourself and then go, oh, actually, maybe there's a lot better ways maybe I could sell this house to someone that needs it, and then I could actually do some good in the world, genuinely create some value and do some good. Obviously, in this conversation, homelessness was going to be brought up. 354,000 as of December last year, homeless people in the UK, and it's definitely rising. It's rising a lot per week. So that number's probably out of the water. And the idea that a landlord can be good and they can do good things, when really there's that many people who are homeless, and all the homeless thing is a money issue. So the idea that if even someone homeless might be able to afford a very, very, very cheap property, but the reason they're going to die, a lot of homeless people are going to die, and many do in the winter coming up, is because of money. And that absolutely infuriates me. It's all well and good it being very tough for most people at the minute, and mental health being a problem, and the cost of living being, but people are dying just because landlords and bankers and governments are doing their damnedest to enslave these people and make life so difficult that they can't afford to live, and giving up and dying is probably on their list of, it is what it is because of the system that we're in. Another argument that always gets thrown at me when I bring this up wherever I'm talking about this is that you don't know, you haven't been in this business, you haven't been in this sector. There are some tenants that are absolutely disgusting. Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that there are loads of tenants that are disgusting, much like there are so many different levels of landlords. There are the scumbags at the bottom who think they're doing a good job and charge okay money, and then there are the ultra scumbags that are really enslaving the world, don't give a about their properties, they don't care about all of the tenants' needs at all, breaking all the rules. They're the ultimate scumbags. But even the one right at the bottom is a scumbag. Even the best of the best landlord is a scumbag. It's just different levels of this scumbaggery that is going on. The argument they will have about the fact that some tenants will be disgusting and will leave property is kind of irrelevant, because that you are in a business that this is potentially going to happen. Unfortunately, that's part of that business that you are operating in. I don't say it's a good thing. It's awful. Obviously, it's awful, and people shouldn't behave in that way. But if someone's that desperate and they're being enslaved, people react in certain ways where they don't care about a property like you will. And I hear it with Airbnb hosts. People nick things, people break things. I mean, that's unfortunately what you signed up for in that situation. I don't agree with it. Obviously, it's crazy, and poor behaviour should not be tolerated. But you're still in a situation that you've put yourself in, whereas someone who has no money and is really struggling isn't in a position to do anything. They are going to be homeless, sleeping on the streets, trying to beg for money. They have to do that. Whereas a landlord can change and can do other things. Could sell the property, could rent it out cheaper, could vet the people in a more responsible manner, potentially. But that's not really an argument for them doing a good job. All that is just an argument. It's just an argument that's kind of off topic. You're enslaving the world, but you don't know what it's like. Irrelevant. We've got to bypass that argument. What you're doing is creating problems and creating people having problems, and that's the issue. That's the issue we've got to sort out, and people have got to realise is a problem. And I'm going to even take another section off it not being just landlords. There is 1 million vacant houses as of the end of last year in London alone. And I know people that have got multiple properties and won't be living in all of them. They're just as bad. They're just as bad we went and viewed 2 properties recently and they haven't been lived in for a year. This is another part of the problem, another issue. And landlords will say, well, we could buy them, rent them up, and you wouldn't have that issue. But people are just hoarding houses. Not everyone wants to sell. So they're hoarding a finite resource that people need to live, jacking up prices on a little land that we're currently on. That's absolute madness. That's another huge part of the problem. Again, please prove to me wrong if you believe someone. A lot of people's arguments in this sort of society are, well, you can't restrict people from owning what, if they want to own what they want, if they've worked really hard and they've got, well, I mean, number one, we don't know how hard a lot of these guys worked. It's been a very easy period for the last sort of 50 odd years. They've been printing money out of existence, part of the problem we're in now. And then all those people from the 70s through to now have had an easier time, much easier time than we'll have in the next 50 years. That's an absolute certainty because of what the bankers have done. So the idea that working hard and you can then buy whatever you want is kind of flawed massively. You need to know economics at a decent level to then start saying that. I think we'd have to cap the amount of houses that someone can have, or, and I'm not talking about taxing people that don't live there and things like that. Tax is no good. Tax is an absolute joke because people will just pay that anyway. We need to restrict people to a certain amount of houses so that there is enough to go round. Another argument, another myth I want to debunk is that a lot of people will say to me, well, there are people that want to rent. Yes, I know there will be a very, very small amount of people, maybe less than 1% of the population, will want to rent somewhere. Even Samuel Leeds says he rents. So there you go. That's how we should do it. You know, if we rent, who's going to rent something out to someone like me? Well, you're a very small minority in that sense. And we're not talking about the 0.01% of people that actually want to rent. Everyone I know, none of them would like to rent. They don't want to pay a landlord, a scumbag landlord, a banker's bitch, to then can pay the bankers so this whole system of corruption can carry on. They would rather have their own house, live in their own house, do it the way they want to do it, under no rules or someone popping around whenever they want, even though they don't even own the house and neither do the bankers. It's all deeds and it's not legal. It's legal, but it's not lawful. So yes, there will be a small percentage of people that are happy being a slave, essentially. They are happy being a slave. And if they've inherited a lot of money or if they've earned a lot of money and they want to be a slave and give the landlord lots of money each month so they can enslave them and change the rules whenever they want, then that's fine. But I don't know anybody that wants to do that. And yes, Samuel, you might be one of the very few, but it's, again, a very, very poor argument on comparing one person to 100 others that don't want it. You know, it's like in a football stadium, one person puts their hand up out of 30,000 people and says, yeah, I don't want to watch this team. Well, you know where the door is. It's off. Go out the door. You don't have to be here. It's the same with this situation. Of course, one person might want to rent. Yes, Samuel, you might want to rent, but most people don't, and we can't have arguments with 29,999 people and then one person doesn't. It's not an argument then. We're just, of course, someone might want to do something disgusting in their hands and then clap in it. They might want to clap all the way, but most people won't want to do that. And that's what we're talking about. So in summary to this rant of a conversation, and I'm hoping for some dialogue in the comments below about this situation, is I want rid of the bankers, I want rid of the government, and I want rid of scum landlords / bankers bitches, because they are the problem, the parasites that we have that even more frustratingly think they're doing a really good thing in this situation. They think they're doing great, and I can't be having it anymore. Please prove me wrong in the comments, and please follow, because this channel will be going through more of the problems we have in society right now, but I think this is one of the biggest ones. Landlords are scumbags. Prove me wrong.